State Representative Sean Scott, for those who aren't familiar, Seattle voters sent a socialist to the state house to represent them, which is just nuts considering what socialist policies have done to the city of Seattle, but they're just gluttons for punishment and they can't get enough. So they sent a guy named Sean Scott to the state house to represent them. And Sean Scott had some issues very early on in his campaign that we reported on at the time. For instance, he was spending a bunch of money on haircuts, which is a personal expense. And he didn't really seem to care. I mean, he really felt as if no one could tell him anything, probably because he's a young black man. And at the time, he's like, nobody's going to tell me anything. I'm a young black man. And I'll just call it racist if they do. Mm-hmm. So I can do anything I want. I can spend a bunch of money on haircuts. He wasn't reporting his, it says he was... campaign committee wrongly identified the sponsor of two of his mailers that he sent out. So voters weren't being told exactly who was funding. They were misinformed on who was funding the mailers he was sending out. Expenditures on printed campaign materials and political advertising were either not reported on time or were missing required details meant to inform the public about the committee's advertising activities. So he wasn't doing what he needed to do to be transparent in his campaign violations or in his campaign finances. And this was all called out at the time. The account Safe Seattle, he posted this while this was all going on. It said, someone filed a formal complaint against local socialist candidate Sean Scott for spending campaign donations to the tune of $333 on his expensive hairdo. The complaint stated that the PDC has previously noted that haircuts are not allowable campaign expenses. Scott responded that he has to look good for the voters and he's going to keep giving his money to Jesus, his barber, until the PDC tells him not to. If Scott was white, the Seattle Times and other local media would be on this story like body lice on a $2 hooker. But in Seattle, one thing you never do is criticize a black guy for what he does with his hair. And so, yeah, he was spending a bunch of money on the barber and literally said, he came out and said that he has to look good for voters and he's going to keep spending money on his haircuts until the PDC tells him not to do it. Well, shock of the century, the PDC is telling him not to do it. Not only that, the PDC has hit him with a massive fine. In the realm of PDC violations, $11,000 is an enormous fine. And it was supposed to be like $30,000, but they ended up cutting it down from this from KUOW. WA Rep Sean Scott fined $11,000 over late campaign finance reports and haircuts. It was a 4-0 vote from the State Public Disclosure Commission. They leveled a civil penalty of $10,000 on the Fighting 43rd, which is Scott's campaign committee, for a litany of reporting violations. Scott also faces a separate $1,000 fine for violating a ban on the personal use of campaign funds. So that has to do with the haircuts. So it says, with each fine, commissioners suspended half the sum as long as the remaining half is paid within 90 days, and neither the committee nor the lawmaker commit any new violations in the next 4 years. Scott said in a statement, I look forward to complying with the ruling handed down today. The Public Disclosure Commission does important work to ensure transparency in our elections. People have a right to know who is funding campaigns for public office. So the guy who said, I don't care if you're calling me out for using money for haircuts, I'm going to keep doing it because I need to look good for voters, is now saying, I look forward to complying. Gee, Sean Scott, maybe you should have listened to people early on because it would have saved you roughly, carry the math, at least $10,700. Because you didn't want to pay out of your own pocket for $300 worth of haircuts. Well, I guess that only saves you. The fine for that was $1,000. So now you have to pay $1,000 for not doing it. So it would have been less expensive to just pay for the haircuts out of your own pocket. Although if they suspend half of the $1,000, technically the fine is $500. So he's down like $170.
I still find it hard to believe he's going to be able to abide by the rules for 4 more years.
That's the issue. So if he doesn't, then he has to pay the rest of it. And then all those other late reporting violations. And it's not as if the campaign he ran was his first campaign ever. He's run for a bunch of things and he lost, but he's run multiple times. And so, some of these violations are for very obvious things. And again, he doesn't care. And I'm saying that is the truth. He thought because he was a black man in the city of Seattle that he could do these things. say publicly, I'm going to continue to do them, and then just get away with it. And I'm kind of surprised he didn't, frankly. So $11,000, he's got to pay at least half of that if he can within 90 days. If he doesn't, it's the full amount. And then he has to keep a clean record on the campaign finance front for 4 years, which, given his disdain for following the rules, as Nicole said, I highly doubt he's able to do that. So Seattle's Socialist strikes again, but this time the PDC struck back.
You know, part of it was that he blamed his people too. He
Oh,
said,
of course.
"Oh, my people were inexperienced." So of course he threw a bunch of people under the bus as well.
Yeah, but ultimately, when you're a leader, Sean Scott, it comes down to you. And you have to take accountability for everything that happens in your campaign.